Welcome to another edition of Tampa Bay Insiders, where we try to profile some of the movers and shakers in town and get you to get to know them better. Today we have with us, very fortunately, former commissioner, former everything, lots of things, former city council person, chair of, I don't know, I think I lost count after about 30 or something, various agencies. Jan Platt. Welcome, Jan.
Well, thank you, Louise, and congratulations. You are a survivor, and you come out in spades. It's just, I'm so glad that...
We're still here?
Well, that public access is well and live and continuing to inform the community. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jan, but we're hanging on by a thread, and we hope everybody hears you and sends money. We are the last public access center in the state of Florida.
Oh, that is
We're
sad.
the last one. And in the last 5 years, and I don't want to digress into that too much, but the show's about you and not us, but in the last 5 years, I think USA News did a story in about 8 months ago, that in the last several years, 600 access centers across the country have closed. They closed 10 of them at one time in LA, and Ed Asner went on the bandwagon to get them back because the cable companies were still running them, and the cable company just shut them down.
Well, and public access is so important. It's a training ground for young people to learn how to produce programs and use the cameras and all. That isn't offered at the other TV stations. And then there's the opportunity, too, for points of view to be expressed that are not being expressed.
The foundation of our democracy.
Absolutely, absolutely. So.
And you know, I think there isn't a soul here who doesn't know how much you watched out for public access while you were in a position to do so, and that how we lost out once you term limited out of the commission and money got moved, and they pretend that it's general revenue money and so forth, so it's crazy. But we'll get back to that at the end of this. Let's talk about you. First of all, you were raised right in this area, correct?
Yes, I was born in St. Petersburg, and for the first 4 years of elementary school, I lived in Lakeland, and then after World War II, then I lived in Tampa and Seminole Heights, and went to Broward.
My neighborhood.
Yeah, Broward Memorial in Hillsborough.
So you're a product of this whole area, so you
Yes.
grew up with it pretty much.
Yes.
And then you went to college,
Florida State University.
Florida State in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you studying when you went there? What was your interest originally when you went out?
I studied political science and public administration.
Oh.
When I was a senior at Hillsborough High School, Seminole Legion Post 111 appointed me to go to Girls State. And so I fell in love with government when I went to Girls State.
Girls State, I
Yes.
don't know it. Is
That's
it renamed?
No, I think it's still in existence. It's a program where college students go up to Tallahassee and
High school students.
yeah, high school students go to Tallahassee and learn about government and state government.
So you're like Pages or Gophers
No,
or what are you?
no.
It's just
Because
education.
It's educational, and then we're elected. I was elected to the Supreme Court. We're elected to the various offices, and then I sat on the Supreme Court. You know, I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for young people to sort of get a glimpse of how government operates at the state level.
I see you went on to, I never knew you went to law school.
I did. I was the only woman in the law school at Florida. That was not a happy
Just
occasion.
absolutely unbelievable. I didn't realize. But so you didn't complete and
No,
go get a law degree.
No, I did not. You know, when I was vice president of the
I
student...
guess sitting at high school at the Supreme Court would make you interested in being a lawyer.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was. And then when I went to the University of Florida to law school, it's no fun being the only woman in the whole school.
Did you get a lot of dates, though?
You can't date in law school because you've got so much to study.
Oh, okay,
so
all right,
it's sort of...
the only woman.
Yes, and it was and in my class was the first black to be admitted to the university system. And what is interesting is when I was a senior at FSU, I was vice president of the student body at FSU. Leroy Collins and Dean Strozier, who was the president, Ann Strozier's dad, who is here at USF now, appointed 3 of us to go to the University of North Carolina to find out how they had integrated their university system peacefully. And what we
And
found...
that was just integration of blacks or
Yes,
women too?
no, that was just blacks.
Okay.
And what we found at University of North Carolina is that they admitted a mature male student who had a family. And so that's what we recommended to Governor Collins. And so...
Instead of a young man or a young
Because
woman.
you think back in those days, if they had integrated at the freshman level, it would have been probably bloodshed.
Yeah.
I mean, our state fought integration tooth and nail. And it wasn't until Collins came on board that they became enlightened. But anyway, so the...
What year is that now?
That was
1958,
1958, 59.
Wow. Okay.
And so the first black was admitted, and he was married and had several children. And so I was sort of proud that the state had followed our advice. But he and I lasted 1 year. He didn't make his grades, and I made my grades, but I decided I didn't like the grief.
Yeah. So you went on to another school?
No, I came back to Tampa and I taught at Hillsborough High School.
Oh, you were a teacher.
I taught American history, and but then I decided I really didn't want to do that, so I became a professional Girl Scout and was a field director for the Girl Scouts for several years.
Oh, wow.
And as fate would have it, I had the only integrated Girl Scout troop in the county. And you know where that troop was?
Where?
MacDill Air Force Base.
Oh, wow.
And that was interesting to try to work through integration with a volunteer organization like
where
that.
the children were integrated than the service was at that time yet, or not?
I guess it was. It was.
Yeah, children are always better at these things, I think, than adults are. They don't come with all the biases or anything, unless somebody digs them in their head or something. But, okay, so you were teaching before you went into public service? Or did
Yeah.
you go do something else? Or wait, you were teaching and then you were in the Girl Scout leadership?
Yes, And then then I decided I was going to go to graduate school, so I went to the University of Virginia Graduate School.
Ah,
And-
beautiful place to go, is that the
Yes,
greatest?
it is beautiful. But I had met my husband. He was with Strategic Air Command out at MacDill Air Force Base and was a pilot with B-47s. And so that was when the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred, when I was up at University of Virginia.
Wow.
And anyway, he and I decided to get married, and so I dropped out of University of Virginia, and we got married, and we moved to Plattsburgh, New York, where he was with Strategic Air Command for several years.
That's an interesting play on his last name.
Yeah.
Was there anybody in Plattsburgh related to Platt?
No, I don't think
Oh, okay,
so.
all
He's
right,
from
so
Kentucky.
He's from Kentucky, okay. So you were in Plattsburgh, New York. That was a big change, I suppose.
They had 1 day of summer.
Yeah,
I kid.
yeah. And 50 inches of rain, snow every day, right?
Right.
So what did you do up there? Did you work?
No.
Okay.
I was on the board of the Girl Scouts up there, and I did substitute teaching and that sort of thing.
When did you get to go to Vanderbilt?
I went to Vanderbilt when he got out of the service. He decided to go to law school, and he went to Vanderbilt. And so I decided that I would work on a graduate degree there. So
What were you going for? Political science too?
political science. And so I went 1 semester, but then I became expectant with our son. So I
Dropped
didn't
out
finish.
time.
Yeah, I dropped out to be a good mom.
Okay, so you were in Plattsburgh and then came back down to Tampa?
No, went to Vanderbilt.
Oh,
Went to
you went to
Nashville.
Vanderbilt first, okay.
Yeah, and then when he graduated from Vanderbilt in law school, we came back to Tampa.
Okay, because your roots were here.
Mm-hmm.
And his weren't, though. His were in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're back in Tampa raising Kevin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And did you suddenly say, okay, now what I'm going to do is run for city council?
My younger sister, who was very talented, and she was a Phi Beta Kappa and had all kinds of opportunities. As a young woman, had cancer, and that was in the 60s. And I'll tell you, there's nothing worse than to have a loved one, younger, and watch them slowly pass away and them fight for life.
I know about this story.
And I watched, and she passed away on March the 4th of 1974, and then a couple of weeks later, Dick Greco resigned from office as
Oh,
mayor.
his first term as mayor.
Yes, in 74, and there were all these seats on city council. And so after I became committed that life is short and you've got to do what you were trained to do. And so that's why I ran for office, and I really dedicated my career to her memory, because I'm not sure I would have ever gotten the courage to run for office. I'm not the outgoing kind of person that likes to stand on street corners or you know, just get up and get into these issues, but
you back those of us who like to.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
But that's what really motivated me. So
Your sister did. So
yeah.
you almost attribute your career to her?
I
That's
do.
wonderful.
You know, and Reuben Askew, she was the singer for all of his inaugural balls. You remember, he was the only governor who had his inaugural balls throughout the state.
Oh, I remember reading about that. yeah.
Pensacola and Tallahassee, Tampa, Miami,
He
Jacksonville,
made sure everybody could come.
which was so great. And
Yeah.
no other governor has done that since. But she was the singer for all of those occasions, which I thought was so great too.
Fabulous.
Yes,
So how long were you on city council?
4 years.
Was that 2 terms at that
No,
time,
that
or
was,
one
no,
term?
that was one term. Sandy Friedman and I and Charlie Miranda all ran the same time. I kid and say we're the class of 74. Oh, that was the first time all of us ran. And there was already a woman on city council, and that was Catherine Barja.
Oh,
And so anyway, and Bill Poe was mayor. But after serving 4 years on city council, I decided that I would run for county commission. City council, see, I'm the kind of person who questions.
well,
and
we heard that.
I just
we
never,
know that.
I never took things, you know, I mean, I would study the issues and I would question everything. And in this city, in city council, you get disliked pretty quickly for constantly doing that.
And you're pretty powerless too, aren't
Well,
you?
yeah, you are,
mean,
but
it's a
but
strong
I was
mayor
powerful
government.
because I would always show them up with, I would always point out why whatever they were proposing wasn't a good idea.
Okay.
Because, you know, they'd come up with these things and they just expect you to pass them, and I'd say, no way.
And that's how you got to be known as Commissioner No, right?
Right.
Okay.
Because I always believed that a well-articulated no is every bit as powerful as a yes vote. And so I would always point out why I was voting no, so that all those who voted yes could either read it in the paper the next day or think about it next time. So
Very
anyway,
good.
so I ran for county commission in '78.
And you won.
I won
And you stayed on there. You
till
just kept
2004,
kept getting reelected. So you served, how many years is that?
24.
24 years. Isn't
Mm-hmm.
that fantastic? That's quite a run. Really.
Well, and it was during the development period of the county, because when I came on board, it was rural. And the city was heavily populated, but there were not people out in the county to any extent. And so it was really a challenge.
Were
It
you
was,
countywide at that time?
yes, I was
Yeah.
always
You
countywide.
were.
I would
Which
not,
is a hard election to win.
yeah, it is, but it keeps you alert and you know what all the issues are, because
That's-
you get out and you talk to everybody.
And Jan, weren't you on that board when most of those people got arrested?
Yes, yes. Well,
That must have been a devastation to be sitting on that board and watch, how many, 3 or 4?
Three.
be carted off to jail.
I became the chairman of the smallest commission in the, in the history of the county.
Oh, my God. Those didn't prompt new elections. They were appointees that were,
Yes.
replaced them all, right?
Yes, Bob Graham. Bob Graham appointed.
Which was another interesting thing. What do you think the biggest issues then were with the county back when you were on it? You said it became, it was more of a rural county, so there must have been a number of issues.
Yes, dealing with growth and dealing with the new subdivisions, and then dealing with alternative ways to pay for the infrastructure to support that growth. Because when I first got on the Board of County Commissioners, there were 80,000 septic tanks in unincorporated Hillsborough. Because what does that mean? That means that all of those houses out there were scattered, and they couldn't be connected to a sewer plant because there weren't that many to have sewage. So it meant developing a sewer system for the county that would meet requirements. It meant developing a water supply, a means to handle garbage. I mean, it was building.
Tremendous.
Yes, over a widespread area.
Where you might have some farms, tomato and strawberry and so forth, and you'd have, or groves, and so it'd be miles before you got to another home or anything, right?
And so that's why they'd be on septic tanks. That's why I've been sort of upset when I saw recently that the governor of the state was contemplating eliminating checks on septic tanks, because obviously he does not understand the dynamics. Because if you have a septic tank, 9 times out of 10 you have a well that's on your property too.
Right.
That's not very deep because you can't afford to dig it very deep. So you want to make sure that your septic tank is not leaking
Into the aquifer.
You're leaking into your well. So that's why it's important to check those septic tanks on a regular basis. Now, luckily, Governor Scott has backed off of that idea. So I think somebody explained to him what the consequences would be if he did that. But anyway, those are some of the things we had to deal with. And the library system, for instance, that I was so involved with.
And they even named a library after you, which is just the most wonderful honor among what you probably had 4 dozen different awards and honors from different groups, especially the environmentally concerned groups, the Audubon and Sierra, and lots of different groups that you have for watching out for environment.
Well, see, I grew up with my dad. It was my sister and I, and my dad is a native of Florida, and he loved to fish. And he loved to crab, and he loved to scallop. And so I was his sidekick. And so
No boys?
No boys.
Okay.
So he and I would go out every weekend and fish and crab and scallop. So I grew up very familiar with this whole bay and with the water on the coastline too.
Are you a fisher person
Oh,
to this
absolutely.
day?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Do you go out now?
Well, I haven't recently because of my illness.
I thought one of the most wonderful things that we didn't mention earlier was the fact that you and Charlie Miranda co-hosted or alternated hosting a show on our channels called Talk to Your Government. And what was really clever about that, or good for viewers, is you brought on different agency heads or department people, and you let it be a call-in show, and you heard comments from viewers directly and answered questions, or had a person there to answer them. You did that for quite a while.
Yes, and it was so much fun and I was surprised at the number of people that would call in, and they all had good questions. And
told you how to run City Hall, or pardon the expression, County Center.
Yeah, that was. I don't know if you have anything similar to that now.
No, we really don't. And the only person I would say, in fact, I proposed that to the County Commission, given that they got rid of their town hall meetings.
It's never too expensive to hear from the public.
Well, they said that was too much for them to do. So I said, why don't you do a Talk to Your Commissioner, borrowing from the name of your show, Talk to Your Commissioner series, and rotate the commissioners. And if one commissioner isn't comfortable with that atmosphere, he can just rotate out and just move it along. and then take the calls and answer the questions and bring on people. And I'd always use the model of you and Charlie Miranda doing that, because I thought that was really a great idea.
Well,
Great
they
idea.
they didn't,
No, they didn't bite.
what a shame.
I mean, not that they didn't, a couple didn't think it was a good idea. They were afraid that by supporting it, that it would look like an unnecessary expenditure, given how tight the budgets are, because it's TV, you know. But then again, it's also a way to fill in the communications gap that between the folks who can't get out. You know, we're great for the people who are shut-ins or can't get to a meeting and learn something else about it. But, so you went off the board, I guess, is that 2004?
Yes.
Yeah, and we were sorry about that. I can tell you that. Didn't you, but you came back, no, wait, you
No.
went, that's when you went off, and then,
No,
you went off before and then came back on.
that was back in 96, 95. I was off for 2 years. In
And
that
you were back
then I
just in
came
time
back.
for us to take over the channels, I think.
Yeah, and I was
98.
off in 2 years. I don't remember which of those 2 years because of term limits.
Right. And then, since you've been off, you've still been involved. You got involved with this charter review, did you not? And a
Yes,
few other things?
I chaired one of the boards of Charter Review, and I was on it this last year. And then I still continue to be on the Agency on Bay Management, so that I still am able to keep an eye on what's happening in the bay. And ironically, I represent the recreational anglers. So,
Oh, ironic. There's
yeah,
nothing ironic
ironically.
about that.
And I don't hesitate to research those issues and ask tough questions and make motions that we take tough action.
Oh, that is really fantastic.
So I'm still
What-
there.
We're down to like 5 minutes, which I think is horrible, but I wanted to ask you, given, I don't know, I guess our entire economic times are not good, and there's been a lot going on with the loss of services and agencies. We just did a program at Athena that you missed this last week about how even women and children are most affected by cutbacks, because those are the folks whose funding's been cut, you know, a lot of those agencies. Where do you think, what do you think we should be doing or looking at, or what should viewers be concerned about at this moment in time, and how can we make a difference? It's a big question.
That's a big question. I think, first of all, we need to encourage good people to run for office who really are community-minded rather than just concerned about the lobbyists and the people who pay the bills. Because if you get people in office who look at the whole community and believe the idea that they are public servants, then I think they will find solutions to some of this. But unfortunately, we have so many people now in office who are divisive and who really march to the orders of those people who contribute.
Party leadership or money?
To the money who contributed to them. And that's sad, because a lot of that money comes from groups that have loopholes for their taxing, so that they're, in some instances, are not paying the taxes that they should. So I think that we need to look for all the loopholes that are out there and close them. I saw something on TV the other night about, they had a long list of major Wall Street firms that don't pay any taxes. And I was shocked, because everybody, it ought to be fair and square for everybody. And I would hope that those in office would look to make sure that it is, in fact, fair and square. One of the things of my concern right now is that a lot of the requirements on developers are being erased. And what I mean is that the requirements that they build the sewer plants to their place, or the roads to their
The
places.
infrastructure.
The infrastructure. And so if they don't pay for it, then you and I are going to pay for it through higher taxes. And then they're going to fire some people in the public service, because they've got to get that money somewhere. And so the best way is to let them go. So it's a vicious circle. I think they just need to learn how to be fair to everyone.
We had in here recently an unnamed female Florida senator, I think. And she happened to say that when she got in office, she thought she could make some real serious changes, but since she's been in, she's watched how the lobbyists and the big paying companies are able to make the decisions.
Because the media is there, and they will pick up on it. And
We have less media. We've had
Well,
media
that's-
mergers and craziness, and
I know.
how do you get your voice out? I
Well,
mean,
and-
really.
And see, that's why your station is so important, and why it's so important for those commissioners to step up and say, yes, we'll have a program, so that we
I think
can
we
hear
should
from the
offer you
public.
another show.
Because they ought to be speaking up. They ought to give
Maybe
the,
you and Terrell would come on together.
well, you know what? He was my Sunday school teacher when I was in high school.
Oh, my gosh. Well, we did a show with Terrell Sessoms, and both of you can give histories of the various things that have gone on in the community and some support and advice with direction that I don't think we're getting elsewhere. I
Well,
mean,
I have
right now.
I have a great deal of respect for Terrell, because again, he was my Sunday school teacher. When he was in law school at the University of Florida, he would come home every Sunday to teach our Sunday school class. So I have a great deal of respect for him.
Wow, he's a committed guy.
Yes, he is.
He really is. And he
Yes.
was also a big supporter and an early person in the battle to get the access channels for the public. I know that because I didn't know it until he got here, and I was reading his resume and said, oh my God, you know the whole early history of this. So we need to encourage people to get involved. We really appreciate, Jan, all your support of our station, but also our environment, keeping growth managed better than we've seen it managed in the past. Thank you so much for being with us, Jan. We really appreciate all your support and everything you've done for public access, the environment, all of us residents, women and children, and we appreciate all that. Hope you'll be back and do a show on our channels again sometime. Thank you all for watching, and we hope to see you next time.
Hi, I'm Police Chief Jane Castor, and you're tuned into Tampa Bay Community Network.